Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Full-INT episode 2.
An ally has been slain.
I'm Booher,
And I'm Richard.
and today we're going to be talking about our top 5 games of all time and kind of like how they affected us as a person and like what we like about them. So am I starting off or are you going?
You know what? You talked enough. It's my turn. I'm going. Fuck you. All right. So my fifth pick for my top 5 video games of all time is gonna be Super Smash Brothers Brawl. It's kind of a normie pick. My whole list is kind of a normie pick. I don't have as many fancy deep cuts like Brandon over here, but the reason why I like he's looking. But like the reason why I like Brawl a lot is because it's the game that I got to bond with my brother Anthony over. We used to play Super Smash Brothers Brawl on the couch, like talking shit, screaming at like fucking 2 a.m. for like fighting and fucking 1v1s for hours on end, going on like the 2v2 ladder, even in Ultimate. It's a game that really means a lot to me and is really near and dear to my heart. It reminds me a lot of my childhood and first meeting my brother and first getting into the big competitive gaming space, and it's my first fighting game. It's where I get all my references from for like frames and stage pressure and like fighting game play styles. And it's been a really big tool in helping me understand like the competitive space in terms of like applying pressure, how different builds and characters interact with each other, like classes of things. Um, it's a it's a whole part of the way that I process and view like competitive concepts and builds even today. There's some other things that that built the foundation for that, but Brawl is definitely a big part about how I process those types of concepts. Yeah, go run out of.
Alright, so my 5th game is going to be Ark Survival Evolved. I switched it last second.
Yeah.
So I picked Ark just because I think as a game fundamentally it's very good. It's a lot of fun. I think it went through a lot of different stages in its lifetime of being unplayable just because of how poorly optimized it was, and then the devs I think really took an extra step to like make sure the game was playable, get it optimized, add content, and then they're still adding content even to this day. And I think it's, in my opinion, I think it's better. It's the best survival game out there, better than Minecraft or any other survival game, just because of all the mechanics that are going in on it, and it has dinosaurs, which are pretty awesome. But for me, because I've sunk like 400 hours into that game, so it's up there for me. And sinking like 200 hours into a game probably isn't that crazy for either of us. But for me, Ark, I feel like gave me like a big step on like how to interact with like people online as a whole, just because when I was playing Ark, I liked playing it solo, but I also liked to stream and record and whatnot back in the day when I was trying to do that. Um, so playing on your own world on your computer has to run everything. So your computer runs slower. So I would always play on this server, and that was when I was only playing alone. I was playing solo. I had my own base and everything. But then I decided to kind of join um, a guild. It's called like a clan, but it's essentially a guild, and it was a lot of fun because we were like the strongest guild on the server, and it was just a lot of fun messing around with everyone, like talking with people, and it kind of taught me how to like interact with people in different ways, like interacting with people on the internet, interacting with people like kind of as strangers because they're like walking around, you just randomly run into someone, and it's a game, so like it's kind of not like real life because you might walk up to someone and they might just pull out a spear and stab you. So not
That doesn't happen to
entirely
you
the
in real
same.
life or what?
No, it hasn't happened to me yet. I'm waiting.
Yeah.
But I think it taught me a lot of social experiences, and like there's a lot of fun stories I have from there, and that was like kind of like a big chapter of like my general like middle school life because I played that game a lot in middle school. A lot of dark days were filled with Ark Survival Evolved. If you haven't tried it, try it out. If your computer can run it, because it is still hard to run.
Yeah. Um, so this brings me to my number 4 pick coming off right off of Booher. This is something that I know is going to be probably near and dear to his heart more so than it is mine. But my 4th pick is going to be Magic the Gathering. There's MTGA, which is Magic Gathering Arena, the actual game, but I'm more so talking about the whole experience of Magic as a whole. I got into it because of like the Command Zone podcast and seeing like Commander and like having people around me always play it when I was younger. I was more of a Yu-Gi-Oh kid, but eventually Magic like grew on me. I just wanted to explore that space. A big part of why I got into Magic is because there's a league YouTuber that I simp over called LS, and LS is like an analyst, high level analyst and player. Does a lot of like breakdowns and kept on talking about the concepts and like the themes of Magic. And I was really curious to see like where those themes came from, what they meant, and like what all the hype was about. So I got into Magic the Gathering Arena, and I was actually talking to Brandon about it. Like, oh hey, like how do I do cards? Like how do I do this? Like running at him like a blind dog. Fucking constantly trying to challenge him with my fucking is it bullshit Shalai getting fucking flame speared out of the fucking sky on spawn. Bullshit. But
Magic's awesome.
but yeah, but Magic has been a really big part of how I process like strategic concepts. So a lot of my top fives are like have shaped the way that I view the world and how I process information. Because to me, fundamentally, games are like systems of thought. There are ways that you can practice under a set of rules that show you ways of thinking and acting. Right? It's like building upon those concepts. And if Brawl was the build for like people and like how like people's tendencies come out, Magic is more broad in the sense that it helps me process and view like personality and concepts and play styles. It's like how does aggro work? How does mid range work? How does control? What does it say about the people who play that? What do the different colors say about like what the person who's playing it like predicting what's going to happen, trying to rig the odds in your RNG, and balancing out that competitive aspect between playing perfectly according to the bot eval versus playing to the human element of the other player. Plus, game is just fun as hell. Yeah.
Yeah, just to reiterate, all our games for our top 5 have to have like been eventful in our lives. It's not up there just because we think it's like a really good game. It's always like had something to do with us. And segueing to my 4th game, it's also a game that Richard plays called Endless Legend. I had to put this game on my top 5 just because of it's taken so much of my life. Like it, I feel like Shocks can also relate to this because I think he has more hours than me now. We've just put an ungodly amount of time into that game, and it's taught us there's a lot of transferables you can take from Endless Legend, because Endless Legend is a 4X game where you essentially have different turns. You're playing with a group of people, and you have different turns where you build up your cities, you build armies, you do research, you make money, and all like you're essentially running an entire empire. And that's what 4X games are all about. And I think Endless Legend just does it the best. That's why I've played it the most. It's also, I think, one of the most intuitive to get into. I think a lot of the other ones can be easy to get into, like Civilization, but I think Endless Legend it's just so captivating. Like it really pulls you in because it's not trying to be like Earth and the normal world. It's set up in the Endless Universe, which the company Amplitude Studios has like made all their games based around. And it's not trying to be like, oh, here's Columbus and here's the Mongols and stuff like that. It's trying to be different. It's trying to like, we'll have some weird insect people that just want to kill and eat everything, and then we'll have those weird dragon people that just want peace for the entire world. It's like every race is like completely different. Like you can play them in completely different ways. You can like win in different ways. And honestly, I don't think Endless Legend is the best 4X games. I think it's one of the best, but I think some of the games that they've made, that Amplitude has made, like Humankind and Endless Space, are actually better than Endless Legend for like different reasons. But I think Endless Legend is the best for just it has a great soundtrack. Like it brings me so much nostalgia just hearing that soundtrack. It has great visuals and it's just so unique. And it's just helped me learn about different strategies like in different games, because I've always played card games my entire life, but Endless Legend has taught me different strategies that I wouldn't have expected just from it being a slower paced strategic game where you're not going to sit down and play for 20 minutes. You're going to sit down and play for 14 hours or like maybe not that long, but like it's going to be like a good 6-hour session to finish an Endless World, just to give you like a broad scheme of how things are going to be. And if you're playing with more people, and depending how you're playing, it can be even longer, and it's a lot of fun. And it's also, I feel like, helped me. It's one of the games I think has brought me closer with everyone on the server, especially because I was playing Endless Legend back when it like came out, and everyone on the server, we only kind of played League of Legends. And even though a dear family member, Stay Cranked, was always or Josh was always bringing in new games, great, fantastic games, just super high quality all the time. They're
Off of
just
the dollar store
all
bin.
so good. Just the graphics are the best. The mechanics are just excellent. I think they're just. I wish he would recommend more games. Honestly, I miss when he would have 3 new games for us to play every single day. I miss that. But Endless Legend was one of the games that I brought into the server because I really liked the game, but there's only so much you can do alone. Like me and Shocks, we play it all the time alone because there's like it's challenging to play with like the higher level AI. But we on the server we were only really playing League and like maybe a couple other games off and on. But I was like, hey, let's try this game called Endless Legend. I think it's a lot of fun, and I've never really had anyone to play with before, so I would really enjoy if you guys want to play with me. And then I know I bought it for someone, I don't remember who, and I think Cranked bought it for someone else. Oh,
Thanks, Brandon.
Hey, you're welcome. I think Crank bought a copy for someone else too, and then we were all playing it, and it's just been a lot of fun. And like, it's a really good chill session playing Endless Legend because like even though we're all fighting each other, and it's like, well, one of us is gonna win this game, and we're all like trying to battle it out. It's like pretty chill because we're just like talking, we're just shit talking. Like it was like we're just chilling, but we have like the game is in the background. It's not like the forefront, even though we're like strategizing, getting mad over like different things and stuff. And it's like cool because we like can like stab each other in the back and be like, oh, I remember that thing you did, like fuck you, and stuff like that. It's a really great game. Like I feel like it's just brought us as friends closer together, just having long sessions with each other like that.
For sure. Endless Legend is definitely really fun. We need to run that back. Unfortunately, there's a Mariana Trench between the amount of time Brandon has sunken in. Brandon, it's like Brandon Shocks the Mariana Trench. There's Anthony. There's a goal. There's Cranked, and then there's like the fucking there's like fucking a couple of light years away, and then like, hi guys, how do I play Cultist again? It's like fucking Monopoly, but cool. But that brings me to, I guess, my number 3 pick. If we're talking about games that brought people on the server closer together and gave that sense of like community, like Brandon had with Ark, and something outside of fucking League of Veg, my number 3 pick is Minecraft because I love Dream. I love the SMP. No, fucking with you. uh, actually, on the real, Minecraft is one of those things I always saw growing up. Like, saw people play. I was like, fairly sheltered growing up. Like, I had like a lot of like surface level friendships with people at school, and I was always like fairly popular. But I never really had those like, yeah, those
Camera's wigged out.
Camera lagged out.
I'm good. You can keep going.
Yeah, but I never really had those like deep cuts, like those like friends that I could just like play games like late night with, or like be like very like vulnerable to, or like people I felt like I had my back. It always felt like we were just existing in the same like general place, and then they're like cool with me being there. But I always looked up to like Minecraft YouTubers when I was little because like I want what they have. I want like have fun times with my friends. I want to like have those like fun highlight moments. I want to play games together. I want to like experience that kind of like community, that social interaction, that like a bond that I saw from like them and like anime and movies and shows where it's like all those like close knit friends. And so when the server decided to play Minecraft together and open one up, like I was basically in heaven. I got to finally experience what was really hyped up my head since I was a kid, and it didn't disappoint. It was super fun, like building houses, like talking shit, fucking baby griefing, fucking, or just sitting in a call, like mining together and stuff. It really, I feel like, brought me closer to a lot of people on the server. It gave us something to do in the background, but that wasn't as like high intensity, as stressful as League, and it gave us like that thing to like kind of experience each other, kind of like a softer VR chat where you could like interact with each other through like avatars and stuff. And it was a really fun way to see people like express themselves and like reach out, and like all the different ways and bases and bullshit people would do. Like Anthony and I built a fucking house out of entirely crafting tables of using command mods. We lived in a volcano at some point. Brandon built fucking the Death Star, I think. I don't even know what that thing was.
Bro, it's my castle in the sky.
Some people lived in fucking anthills, fucking mines underground. Some people were like coasting with like flowers and shit. It was really fun to experience that and see everyone like be together and hang out and let their kind of artistic chops go loose.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree. So then
Yeah.
that brings me to my number 3, which I'm
Mhm.
going to have to say is going to be Grand Blue Fantasy Versus. I hate the game, but it has to be on the top 5.
How the fuck does that work, Brent?
I hate the game, but it's got to be in the top 5. Well, I don't like League, and it's up there. Spoiler alert. It shouldn't be that much of a spoiler.
No, they didn't listen to the first one. They don't know.
They don't know. So Grand
Yeah.
Blue, where do I even start? So it's a fighting game, but it's trying to Grand Blue Fantasy Versus tried to make fighting games accessible to everyone. You didn't have to have a background of playing fighting games. You didn't have to be a tryhard. You didn't have to really know a lot about fighting games to get into Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, because one of the gaps, I would say, like one of the skill gaps that stops you from getting into fighting games are the different combos. Wait, hold on. I can actually show you on my Xbox. So let's see. Ta-da! So like different combos. So like up, down, like light attack, for instance, right? Some people wouldn't be able to do that right off the bat, right? But what Grand Blue Fantasy Versus does, it adds like easy skills essentially. It adds a skill button. So all you have to do is press in a direction and press your skill button, and it'll activate an ability. So normally Fireball is like down and toward a direction, and then a button, and then you'll send out like a fireball, like some kind of projectile. But in Grand Blue Fantasy Versus, you only have to hold the forward button and the ability button, and then you'll send out the fireball. There's different pros and cons to using it, which I won't really get into. It's all about cooldowns and like what's faster and like stuff like that. But essentially, what you need to know is Grand Blue wanted to make fighting games accessible to everyone. It definitely had a lot of issues, but it definitely did that for me, because I've always kind of played fighting games throughout my life, like off and on. Like I always played like Mortal Kombat and Tekken, because I remember back in the day, one of my dad's good close friends, he bought a PlayStation 2, and then he left it here. He like just was like, "You guys can have it." It was like kind of weird, but that was like one of my introductions to gaming. Like I had several like introductions to gaming, but that was like one of the big ones. And Tekken was one of the games on there, which I wanted to put on there just because it was like my first fighting game, I guess you can say. But Grand Blue is the fighting game that really made me a fighting game player. I know you've said it before, Richard, because I never even heard it said before until you said it. But like top lane is all about, like, top laners just want to play fighting games. That's like what they want to do. And now I understand, because that's what it is. Because top lane is just a fighting game. It taught me a lot about fighting games. It taught me a lot about myself, and it gave me a lot of confidence. I would say that's the number one thing it did for me. It gave me a lot of confidence and like belief in myself, because I started from nothing. Essentially, I had no groundwork to really work with other than I played fighting games before, but I played them like how I'm sure a lot of people play them, where you just kind of like mash buttons and like have fun, right? Like, oh, I got an ability out that I wasn't expecting to get out, right? Like you play it at a party and you don't know what you're doing, kind of deal. But when I got into Grand Blue, I was like, I really like this game. I like the characters. I even got into the story and all the lore and everything. And I was like, I want to kind of take this game to the next level. So I want to actually like try to learn it, kind of like how I did with League. So I approached it how I approached League, where I'd like just keep failing over and over and over again, trying to learn, just going into the training tool and like just practicing. And I would say it gave me a lot of confidence, because I started from nothing, and like within 2 to 3 months, I became a very high level player. This was before I would say I was like semi pro. Grand Blue didn't really have like a really great pro scene, especially in the Americas. In Japan it did, but in the Americas not so much. But it was like I went from nothing to being a high A ranking player, which for that game was very difficult to achieve, because that game was one of the hardest games to ever climb in, like in the history of fighting games. And I would think, in my opinion, in games in general. To give you an example, Masters is as high as you can be. Once you get into Masters, now it just gives you a number. So you're like If you're number one, you're the best. That's just how it is. And I think the first Masters player didn't show up until like 6 months into the game or something like that, which is insane because obviously he was a professional fighting game player and it took him that long to just get up to that point because of how hard it is to climb. I think it took 6 months. I could be a little off with that. But seeing myself grow that quickly really taught me that like if I can put my mind to something, if I can like really work towards something I'm passionate in, then I can really kind of achieve what I want. Um, and I even went further beyond than that. And I was playing in tournaments and stuff, having a lot of fun. Even though a lot of people didn't like the character I was playing. Not because he was good, just because he was annoying.
I love Mario Party.
I love Mario Party. Guys, we're not playing a fighting game anymore. We're playing Mario Party. You don't know what it means. It's
I'll show
okay.
them. They'll see it on screen. They'll know.
But pretty much, like it was just a lot of fun, and I'll say that it was a big chapter of my life, especially the timing it had. It was very unfortunate timing for the game, but I feel like it was kind of fortunate for me. Unfortunate because I feel like if so Grand Blue Fantasy Versus came out at like the height of COVID when everything was going into lockdown where you couldn't go outside, essentially. Which was terrible for the game just because the net code, which is quick TLDR net code is like playing with other people, like how good the connection is, how it's designed and stuff like that. So essentially it wasn't very good. So if I was to play with Richard, it wouldn't be super great. Like it would be kind of lagging, like kind of delayed, essentially. And like playing with someone overseas is impossible. With Grand Blue, essentially. So that held back the game a lot. The lobby system, it's not very easy to find people to play with effectively. Held the game back. But so the game really needed in-person contact, right? You needed to have those tournaments where you could play in person, which the game never had, essentially, just because it came out during lockdown when you couldn't go outside. But it also was good for me because that game came out the Monday that my school closed. Like it literally, my school closed and Grand Blue came out, and I was like, I'm cool with this. I'm just gonna play Grand Blue. Like I've been waiting for this game to come out. So I just had a lot of extra time to play it, and like I feel like it kind of distracted me from things with like that all the drama and like especially the early scare of COVID because like in the early days is like very scary and like a lot of unknowns, and it kind of helped distract me from all of that. I feel like so Grand Blue is definitely surprised it's not in my top two, but after putting the list together, it's definitely a good top. It's good number 3.
And speaking about games that helped like distract us from tragedy and gave us a lot of confidence and like really like pushed us to grow, that brings me to my top two, which is gonna be there's a pretty obvious answer here if anyone who knows me. My second favorite game of all time is League of Lego, the arcane video game itself. No, I actually do love League of Legends a lot. I got into League of Legends around season 5. It was my first like computer game because before then I was a Nintendo handheld like console only type of person. I didn't really have a lot of friends to play with, so the first time I got a laptop, I saw like League pop up. Through my recommended, the game looked fun, and I once again I wanted those friends, I wanted that connection. So back when I was like leveling up against bots way back in season 5, someone showed up in my bot game and said and like just popped off on Trindamere, and he was like, "Bro, I am the best. Avram is just better than bots." And I was like, "I want to be the best." So I popped into call with him, and then we played an ARAM game together, got along. And he recommended me to a friend of his to like help get better. That friend came into a team builder, and what he turned out to be my oldest and closest friend, Mr. Joshua Khalid Joseph, Stay Cranked, or Old Black Senpai as he's called nowadays by literally no one. But but after hanging out with him and like getting along and like I decided like fuck it, I want friends. Like I just want like some kind of companionship. I want that deep cut. So I took that first big step. I made myself really vulnerable, and we had like a very long, deep conversation for like 8 fucking hours. And at the end of it, we were like, "So we're best friends?" Oh, he's like, "Yeah, fuck yeah." And then from there, like the server built around it. Like the server I met Booher from, and the server that a lot of our guests are going to be coming from built around that sense of community and that camaraderie that we had. We brought in Shocks and Secret, and then Booher and Go Cool and um, Nika and everyone just trickled down because of that. And League really did give me like the friendship and the close bonds and like the chosen family that I wanted and I dreamed about having for so long as a kid. And the game itself really pushed me to like get better and like fucking confront myself because I would know things but I couldn't apply it. It forced me to see the difference between theory and practice and like flesh out concepts and actually like work for something and like actually like earn it and like grit my teeth and not just like and tell me that like knowing something isn't enough. Like there is a limit. There is a bigger world out there. It's like a frog getting dragged out of the well, seeing like the grand sky and the ocean for the first time. It really opened me up to meeting new people, to finding out more about myself, and like finding that new peak and that new summit. And I started using League as a way to like explore concepts, to, like figure out like how to get to know myself and be more familiar with like my identity as a human, really, and like to practice that competitive mindset that not only comes from games that transfers over to academics and all sorts of things. League has been really like important and near and dear to my heart for what it's given me, for how the game is. And even now I'm still really engaged with the game and I'm trying to climb to high rank just to see if I can do it, just to explore that summit again and find out like where my potential ends off. The game has so much depth, it has so much engagement. For as much shit as we give it, the community at large is very fun to talk to. And if you find the right people and you get engaged in all the storylines of pro play and the champions and the lore, the extended universe and arcane that I was joking about earlier, and all that stuff that Riot pumps into the music and all of that, it's a very deep, massive community that has so much room to explore that I really can't imagine what my life would be without it. Compared to the rest of my top five, there's Minecraft, there's like, and then there's the Mariana fucking Trench, and then there's League. It's not even fucking close. If anyone asks me what games I play, League is always first and foremost, or one of the first and foremost games in my mind, right behind number one. But with all of that hype out of the way and all of that setup, before I get into my number one, I want to let Brandon take the mic for a bit and get into his number two.
Well, just really quick, I think because you brought it up, like League was a big deal for like the whole server, like coming from your side, just because it started the server. Like
Yeah.
it essentially started. It started with you and Cranky,
Mm.
because some people watching like don't know or like aren't as active on the server. I'm not. I would consider myself like a Gen 2. Like where Gen 1
Yeah.
would be Richard, Shocks, and Cranked, right? And then there would be like, and then I think Anthony you could probably consider like part of Gen 1.
And
And
it's like
then
1.5.
like 1.5. There's like a middle ground there. But then
Yeah.
I would consider myself Gen 2, where there was like a new wave of people that like kind of joined the server. Um, and I think I talked about it in the last pod, but just a quick summary. Like I just joined because one of my friends was a friend of Cranked, and everyone was doing an in-house, and you guys needed another team member to play the in-house, so she invited me, and that's how I got introduced to the server. And then after that, actually, because when I got introduced to the server, you weren't there. It was just Cranked and
Yeah.
Shocks, pretty
You
much an
broke
ant.
into my house.
So
I was
I
like, wait, he's
broke
cool.
in, and then we had the awesome interactions. When you randomly joined, I was like, "Who's this?" And you're like, "Who's that?"
Yeah, you're like, who the fuck are you? I was like, this is my server. Like, oh.
Oh shit! I didn't know. My bad.
Yeah.
But
And then that's how I met your father.
and that's how I met your father, pretty much.
Yeah.
So yeah, just because I wanted to like reiterate that, because like the league was like the starting of everything, pretty much from your end.
Yeah, that's how we met. That's how everyone else met.
So going into my number 2 slot is gonna be Magic the Gathering. Similar to Richard, we got some transferables. I have to have Magic on my second slot just because it was one of the first games I ever played. Period. Like I said, I've always played card games, but it all started with Magic. I had some family members that played it, and like I kind of got into it from there because my family, like we've always been into, specifically on my step side, like the fantasy world. Like I love dragons, but like we always like kind of like medieval knights and like medieval times and all that kind of fantasy stuff, which and magic and everything, which is well, Magic the Gathering kind of takes a lot of inspiration from. So it was just an immediate gravitation, and especially because my stepdad had previously played Magic, and his best friend had previously played Magic. He even still has a lot of his old Magic cards. He sold a lot, but he still has some. And I just have always been playing it, and, like collecting the cards, and like mostly playing on my own. It kind of sounds sad to say, but I would just make 2 decks and just play against myself, and be like, okay, this is the best move for this player. All right, I'm gonna swap to that side. Oh, this is the best move here. Which, when you're deck crafting, is actually what you're kind of supposed to do, just to see like counter matchups and like what cards need to be taken out and stuff. But so it made me a good deck crafter because I was like, oh, this card's kind of bad. Let me take it out because you can speed up the process because you can look at 2 different decks at the same time. So it made me a good deck crafter, but it was also very lonely. Which in my early like childhood I was pretty lonely, just because of like how life worked out, and I'm not gonna dredge down the podcast or anything, but it was also a good connection for me with my IRL friends, because one of my good friends, we don't talk as much anymore, but I would still say we're pretty good friends. We kind of like had that initial connection from Magic the Gathering. In my middle school, he transferred from a different school. I think he moved from California. And we got to know each other. We talked. We were both Filipino. And we related over that. And we were both like Asian kids that wore glasses. We had like a lot of connectings. And then we were trying to kind of figure out stuff we could do together. And like, I was like, I play Magic. Do you play Magic? And he's like, oh yeah, I play Magic. And he's like, my dad plays Magic too. So he has like a bunch of cards. So we kind of bonded over that. And then Afterward, it was like a big part of my life for just high school in general, especially early high school, because I didn't have I had a lot of friends, but not a lot of close friends, like people that like I knew, like if I called them, they'd be there for me like in an instant. And I feel like Magic the Gathering kind of introduced me to those close friends, because I have a lot of friends that we would just play the game and we just became closer and closer and closer with each other just from Magic the Gathering. Um, like my closest friends, that's how we met each other, and that's how we bonded so closely to each other, because we would just go to each other's houses and play Magic, and we'd talk to each other. We'd find different things we liked, and one of them I knew in back in middle school, but we weren't like really like close friends, because we didn't ever play Magic together. And that's like a pretty good example, because at middle school we didn't know we had that Magic connection. We just had gym together, so we would talk and we like had fun with each other. But then once we were in high school, we found out we both played Magic, so that's when our connection became tighter. Because like freshman year, we like kind of lost contact with each other, and then sophomore year we like found each other again. um, so it's a big deal for me, because all my closest friends, I think we can all our connections from Magic the Gathering, and like we often we got into Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that afterward, which brought us even closer. And then like we just had shared a lot of the same interests. Like we shared the same movie interests, game interests, a lot of like personality wise, like you could say, okay, we're not all like similar personalities. We actually each have like our own very distinct personalities and like roles we fit in like the group dynamic. But it's like we all kind of can like similar things, and we're all like very different. Like if you're talking like politically or culturally, we're all very different, but we're still best friends no matter like the views that we share on things and like how we see the world. Like at the end of the day, we've got each other's backs. And I think I can owe that to Magic the Gathering. I feel like it's not a far stretch, so that's why it definitely has to be my number 2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And speaking about games that we played when we were lonely and definitely helped a lot during our childhoods, my number 1 game, my favorite franchise of all time, the one I will rep until the day I fucking die. The first video game I ever played since I was 4 years old, before I could even do words, back when I was pointing at pictures and mashing buttons. A little baby Richard. It's the one, the only. If you know me, there's only one answer. It's fucking Pokemon, baby. I want to be the very fucking best. Pokemon has Booher's heard me talk about Pokemon at length. Everyone on the server, everyone who knows me has heard me talk about Pokemon at length. But I think this is gonna be the first time I really gush over why exactly I love this franchise more than just the surface cut. Um, Pokemon to me is a game that's very near and dear to my heart, my very soul. Something that I've really gotten into. Like I said, I've been playing Pokemon since before I could literally talk. I didn't talk until I was 4 because young Richard was a Chad and thought I could just point at things. Talking was for bitches. I realized I could get meaning across just words without words by just pointing at things. I refused to talk. They put me in fucking speech therapy school, and I was like, they gave me like a console, like, oh, it'll gauge his brain, like he'll like see the pictures and stuff, he'll read. And so I was playing Pokemon, bullying kids on the playground with like on my little Nintendo, robbing them. Pokemon's been really close to me because it's growing up. That's how my sister and I used to play together. That's how we used to bond. We used to play Pokemon Diamond and Pearl together and Black and White. I used to watch the anime all the time, and the with my background, which I won't get into for similar reasons to Booher, because that's not what this pod episode's about. I was really lonely. I didn't have a lot of friends, like I mentioned in the League bit and the Minecraft bit. But Pokemon really gave me a lot of inspiration and a lot of hope when I didn't feel like I had any. It gave me the fantasy that Booher mentioned with Dungeons and Dragons. It gave me the perspective that I got from League of Legends. It gave me a framework and gave me like a big concept of my identity, which is in Pokemon, the central thesis, like, I want to be the best, you got to catch them all. It's building that team. It's like realizing that one person isn't enough. That no matter what you try and do, you cannot round out all of your weaknesses because there's only so much you can do. But by having people at your side that you can trust to have your back, like even gods are not safe. You know, it's the power of friendship, like literally shown. That anime, like power friendship, like spirit bullshit is something that really stuck close to my heart and something I tried to replicate even now in my life, like making like the server, making this podcast, trying to build communities. It's the reason why I'm going into law is because I want to have people's back. I want to give them that safe sense of like safety and security and that support that Pokemon gave me when I was growing up. Pokemon to me has always been something where it's shown me that there's different types of people, that there's different backgrounds, and if you watch the anime, there's a lot of Pokemon that were like mistreated or not recognized or not valued as well, but they were able to shine to their max potential by having their support, by having people who would spend the time to train them, to watch them evolve, to be better. And like what evolving really means. Like just because you've gotten better, does that mean you feel better about yourself? Does that mean you've really lived up to your final form? The competitive side of Pokemon, I mentioned in episode 1, I used to be a very competitive player. In generation from generations 5 to generations 7, I was a top 500 player. My peak was top 20 on the UU ladder and the OU ladder, which are different tiers of competitive Pokemon. Competitive Pokemon really taught me a lot about understanding myself as a person, about like my playstyle, like my tendencies, about like wanting to round myself out. It helped me understand different styles of thought because I would fight people and I'd see how their teams work and the gears would turn because I always wanted to I always dreamed about having friends of my own and having that team. And Pokemon gave me that opportunity to put that concept to work. It was the first game I really sunk my brain into to try and min max all the teams and all the gimmicks and all the spreads. And it really showed me just how valuable it is to have teamwork happen, to have people who you can trust happen. Because even from like an in-game perspective, you take away the anime power of friendship, right? One Pokemon can only train so hard. There's your natural stats, and then there's how you train. And you can only train so hard. You can only avoid so many things before you are vulnerable. You need people to have your back. You need to be able to cut off something, to relax a bit, and to have that support. And that team building aspect gave a lot of room for strategic thought for me to learn a lot more about the world, really. And it's how I approach people. I approach people by figuring out like what type they are, like how I can support them by scouting out their strengths and their weaknesses and really trying to make them shine. And the cool thing about Pokemon is once you get really good, like a card game, you can make any Pokemon that you want work because you're just fucking good. It's player difference. Of a weak trainer needs strong Pokemon to win. The truly strong can use any Pokemon they want to win. That's a quote from one of the bosses in the game, and it's true. And that's something I genuinely believe in. I think there is some good, there's some strength, there's a lot of potential in people that doesn't go recognized that I think is really wasted and like awful, really. And I try my best in life to find those people I believe in and give them that chance to really shine and put them in the spotlight and support them the best ways I know how. that's a lot of the big reason why I think I have a lot of the friendships I have now based on that inspiration, that ideal. Like that's how I met Crank, that's how I met Booher, that's how I met the rest of the server. And for the longest time, that's how I thought of myself. And now coming back into it and seeing just how much perspective and just how much it's influenced my life, it's really no competition to say that Pokemon is my favorite game, favorite franchise of all time.
Yeah, it's had a big chapter in your life. It's not closed.
Mhm.
It's still open.
Yeah.
um,
We're talking, I
yeah,
think, since I was 4, I'm 19 now. It's been 15 years of gameplay.
I'm sure you're very happy that
16
we're
if you
kind
want to
of
count
playing
me
it.
mashing a Nintendo when I
Yeah.
was a little baby. My uncle put it in my hands. So, depends on how you skew it.
We need to get everyone back into it. We were playing for like a little bit, and then I was the only one
Yeah.
grinding.
Yeah. That do happen a lot.
It does
Over
happen a
the years,
lot.
I've been like begging Boo. I was like, please get into competitive Pokemon, please. It's like one of the games where I feel like if I watch you play, I can stare into your fucking soul because I know exactly what your decisions you're making. I know what your Pokemon mean. I know like what you're thinking. It's like the easiest way for me to understand talent and like understand people and their tendencies. It's really fun. It's great. I love the fucking game.
It's a good game.
Yeah.
Um, so going into my number one, there's only one game left. It's League of Legends. um, I feel like I have a different perspective on League of Legends than everyone else, just because I've been playing it like not since the beginning, but pretty close to it. I feel like everyone joined around like season 3 and 4, and I feel like that's where most of the player base did start playing the game. Um, but I started playing because of my stepdad, and he's played the game since somewhere between the beginning to the middle of season 1, and I would watch him play it because in our old house, before we moved, he would play a lot of World of Warcraft, and I would also play on his account. Like I had my own character, and I would play. Um, I wouldn't play very far, get too far, just because he thought it was like maybe like a little too aggressive or violent, or like maybe the women were too um, voluptuous um, in the game. So I wasn't playing too much, but I was playing and I was having fun with it. Um, but then after the housing market crashed, he didn't want to spend all the money that World of Warcraft costed, because it was a very money grabby, absorb your soul, your time, and your money, both of them kind of game. So he didn't want to put all that investment into World of Warcraft, and he was very good at the game. He put a lot of time into it, and a lot of work into it, because he would play like Holy Paladin. I don't know all the specifics. He would be able to tell you, but he was like the top, or like the top 2 Holy Paladins, um, for like his. I don't remember if he said it was for the realm or if it was like North America or something like that. But it was like literally, if you were going to do any like some type of raid or like do anything, and you wanted like a very good Holy Paladin, you would enlist him, pretty much. And like he has a bunch of stories about when he would go to like horde camps, because he was alliance. He would like go to horde camps and like spawn camp people, like new players and stuff. He has like a bunch of stories. But essentially, he switched to League, and I would watch him play, and I was like, dang, that game looks really fun. I wanted to play it, but I was scared because he was always talking about, with his friend who was also playing with him, how it was very like not a kid's game, just because, not because of the violence, because of the women, because Riot in their classicness likes to have very exposed women in the game, which is right now it's like not as much of a problem as an issue, but especially back in the day, it was a lot. But now they have to like consider all the other regions that they have, and they have to censor stuff a little more. And sometimes they get a little crazy, but beside the point. I don't really care, but at the time, you got to consider I was like 8 at the time, or something like that. So it's like, do you really want an 8-year-old playing this game? So I downloaded it on my laptop behind their backs, um, and I was playing it, and I was having so much fun. But I would always have to, if anyone was ever coming by, close the laptop. I wasn't watching porn, I swear. But just in case, I was, because that's better than me playing League. But yeah, but I remember the day I got caught was my step cousin was visiting from, or no, she was staying over. I mean, I don't think she wasn't visiting. Uh, she was staying over at our house, and we made this like pillow blanket fort downstairs. And I was playing League. I was on my laptop inside the blanket fort playing League, and then everyone was having fun messing around while I was playing League, and they were like, "What are you doing? What's going on?" And like I closed the game, or I closed my laptop, but it was still making League of Legends sounds, and my stepdad was like, "Is that League of Legends?" And I was like, "No, but it might be." And he was like, "You're playing League? Why don't we play together?" And I was like, "What?" This was not the reaction I was expecting. I thought I would be in trouble. But then we started playing together, and then it was a lot of fun. So my experience started toward I considered myself like a season 2 player, even though I started playing toward like the end of season 1, like the middle to end of season 1. But I didn't really understand the game until like season 2. And League has just been so much of my life. I mean, obviously I've been playing League for more than half of my lifetime. Like just considering that. And it's just taught me so much about a work ethic, about improving, about controlling your mental and your anger and so many different emotions and things. Like a lot of ups and downs. Definitely a roller coaster of a game. It's just because I started from the bottom. I was playing the game for fun. I got banned a couple times. Back in the original days when I was playing, because I would just like leave the games because like I had other games I could play. So I would join people's custom games, which if you don't know, a custom game is a game that someone makes a lobby and like they invite all their friends to, or random people. So it's not like matchmaking where you randomly match up with these people and now you're playing the game. It's like you join these people and they like you, or they don't like you, but they like accept you. So then they start the game with you. So they're choosing to play with you. So I would join these people's custom games, and then I would leave during the game, and that's how I got banned for like 3 months. But it was it's just been so much of my life. And it's because I started from the bottom. I was like all bronze for many seasons until I was like, I want to take something seriously in my life, other than school. So I was like, I wonder how far I can get if I like really wanted to. So I picked up one of the hardest champions in the game, Gangplank. So I was like, I need to prove myself. So I'm gonna pick up one of the hardest, and he was deemed as one of the hardest. So I picked him up, and I picked him up, and I took Darius as well, and I went from bronze all the way from bottom bronze, and I scaled up to platinum, which was a really great feeling. And League of Legends, similarly to Richard, has like just gotten me so many friends over the years. I remember one time I quit League, and then in middle school, there was this kid who I thought he was so cool. I just like always wanted to be friends with him. And then we were sitting next to each other in our draft class, like first time ever. And he was like, "So what are you into? What do you do? You play any games?" And I was like, "Yeah, I play games." He's like, "What do you play?" And I was like, I play this and this and this." And he's like, "Do you play League?" And at this point, I quit League. I was playing Heroes of the Storm. And I was like, "Yeah." And I was hooked right back in, baby. So that got me some friends there, and then that's how I met Music Hat, who introduced me to the server where I've gotten some of my best friends ever. We've been together since like the end of my middle school, beginning of my high school time, and it's been like 6 years now. It's kind of just crazy to think like how far we've come and all those experiences we've had, and it's all come from League. So I have League to think about that. And I think my top two like really signifies like just the friendships and bonds that I built. Like Magic the Gathering helped me with my real life friends and everything, where League is like my virtual friends. And just so much time and energy spent on that game, and so many bonds, passing friends, new friends, making the connections with everyone on the server, and we're all still actively playing it, like actively playing it. So it's not like it's a dying breed. Even though there's been a couple scares and people always say the game's gonna die, but it's still going, it's chugging, and I don't think it's gonna stop anytime soon. Like side tangent, like Riot I think is like a good company. They've had mistakes, they've had ups and downs, but like everyone does, and all companies do. And I think like all the games that they're pumping out, all the shows, everything they're trying to do is really great. And I feel like League, if we're just trying to talk from a quality standpoint, but memes aside, I think it's a fantastic game, a great game. Like they've really, especially from me coming from essentially the beginning of the game, seeing them really flesh out all the characters, go back to old characters, really flesh out their lore. Because there wasn't really lore back in season 1. It was, this is a champion, this is what he does, he's cool. Oh yeah, this is a sewer rat. Why? Because. Okay, cool. And now that's like fleshed out, and like we actually have lore behind that, and like there's reasons for it to be. And like if you ever do research on the lore, it's just super cool. Like Necrit, a YouTuber, like makes some fantastic lore videos, and it's just so many things that they're making, like Arcane, like hitting like like top like shows on Netflix and everything. Um, it's just very cool to see like where the game was and like where it's come to, and like also seeing where I was when I started playing to where I am now. It's like just a huge gap, um, which I think is a lot of fun to see. And I just have a lot of things to thank League for, and I like barely touched it here, but definitely my number one for sure.
Yeah, I think when it comes to our top one, our top two, if you catch Booher and I, we'll literally talk your ear about it for like fucking hours on end if we get the chance to. Um, a lot of these games are really near and dear to our hearts, like just how we've grown up as people and like how we define the top five. I don't have as big of a variety because, like I said, Pokemon has my fucking soul, League has all my free time, and the other three just kind of trickled in there. But I definitely do love all those games a lot, and I'm sure Booher is much of the same, where those games are definitely a big part of how we grew up and became the people that we are. But
Yeah, for sure. Every one of those games, a lot of thought was put into picking them. There's a lot of
yeah,
games I wanted to get in there and I had to get booted out. Um,
yeah.
but I'm happy with my top 5 and just like how they changed me as a person.
hmm But in that same vein, something I also wanted to talk about is because we touched on the cliff notes about how League changed us as like, or games changed us as people and how we like learned about ourselves and grew up. Last pod we mentioned how you and I both don't like other people having fun. We touched on like the play style. Yeah, we touched on the play styles a bit, and I think now after going through our top five and talking about the games that we were raised and we grew up on, I think this is the perfect opportunity to loop back into that and let the viewers know what exactly we meant by uh what our play by how we described our play styles and how we view our games and life in general, really. So, Booher, you want to start?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, I think if you look at all my games and like just how I play them, because the way I try to play my games, my play styles, I like to take characters that aren't as good or characters that require like there's like there's the three, right? Like the character can either be highly hard to play, like very technical, or just a lot of difficulties that make them more complicated to play, like a like Gangplank, for instance, would be that considered that. But also, the number one requirement is that they cannot be played a lot. So Gangplank, at the time that I picked him up, no one was playing him because they thought that he was too hard and that like the reward wasn't there. It definitely was there. That was actually when he was the strongest when I picked him up. But beside the point, they can also be like some type of gimmick character where they're just not good, but they have some like gimmick that's like kind of fun or something about them. And I already mentioned like that third is that they just cannot be like highly played. If a character is highly played, I'll just drop them. It's happened with my champion pool in League of Legends a lot, where I'll be playing a character, and then as soon as they become really popular, I'll just drop them, just because I don't want to be playing a character that everyone else is playing. I try to define myself away from everyone. Um, and in terms of my playstyle, it's like kind of I like to play these gimmicky characters to kind of flex on people, to be like, hey, I think I'm better than you, so I'm just gonna do this weird gimmick character or this character that takes a lot of skill, and I'm gonna show you that I can do it, right? And make sure like yeah you might not have fun just because I might like raw skill on you or something like that. Like that's kind of like how I like to play my games. Um, so you can like if you want to go back into all the games like an Endless Legend, I'll play like I can play like all the factions, but I might like this game I'm gonna go like try to go for an econ victory, or I might then just try to defend my borders, or I might like just try to like dominate the map or whatever. Um, And then Grand Blue, I played. Grand Blue is a very famous one because I played Lil Wayne, and for that game, it's Lil Wayne's like all gimmicks. At the time, and even I would say even now, I'm not like super aware of the state of the game, but he was always like a gimmick character where he wasn't very good. He had like weird mechanics about him that were very different from the rest of the cast, which made him kind of difficult to play against if you haven't played against him a lot. But the thing is if you had practice against him and you knew how his mechanics worked, it was very easy to defeat him. And that's who I played for a good length of Grand Blue. I eventually switched off to a different character called Zoe, just because she was a dragon character. Dragons are, my kind of theme. But she was also like a high mechanical character for the time. She's not the hardest anymore, but at the time she came out. People were like, "Oh, she's the hardest character for Grand Blue," so I picked her up. And you can see this across all my games. And like in terms of how I play against someone else, I try to just kind of risk take. A lot of people kind of like refer to it as like coin flipping, where you like flip a coin, like I'm either gonna win or I'm gonna lose, feast or famine type of deal. And that's what I kind of like thrive for in League of Legends. Not so much anymore, but my like root Booher Dragon playstyles, I'm going to 2v1 top lane, and I'm just gonna try to take the game into my own hands and try to win. Right? I'm gonna make sure my top laner, I'm gonna like try my best to dominate my top laner. He's not gonna be having fun. He's going to summon his jungler, so now I'm getting even more econ because I can just kill the jungler too, is the whole idea. And that's like how I kind of play my games. Also very greedy. I like to make, maybe not the most efficient plays, but like making a lot of money and like just making a lot of money and being greedy. I like money. What can I say? And I feel like that's like a lot of my root play styles. And I feel like if you look at my top 5 and like how they've changed me, and just talking about like the different characters and like the ways I play those games, you can kind of see where that's coming from. And then like Magic the Gathering, I lean towards Rakdos Izzet, where if you don't know, Izzet's like kind of Izzet's blue red, and blue is control and red is aggro. So it's like kind of a balance. Izzet's like a balance, like kind of they try to do combos and like cast a lot of spells and like make sure that they can like hit you hard or like kill you in like a turn or two while also controlling you, like making sure you can't do what you want to do. Which I feel like is a lot of my like where I come from, like when Rakdos is like a lot of aggro but like also controlling space with black cards. It's like kind of like in the same vein but also pretty different in how they do it. Where Rakdos will do it through like creatures and like try to summon a lot of creatures and like control the board that way. Izzet will try to control the board with spells. And I feel like that leans into my playstyle just because you can look at, I like to control what's happening in my games. Like I like to control my lane for League of Legends, and I like to control the space I'm in for a lot of other games. And then I like to kind of abuse the space that I'm controlling and manipulate it in a way to where I can attack my opponent or abuse them or like use some kind of mechanic to fight them with. Like in League of Legends, you can win top lane not just from killing your opponent, but from wave control. So there's a lot of times, especially when we're playing like in higher level matches, like we're in like in the scrims games, I had to do it a lot, where instead of just raw killing my opponent, I'll control the minions. So I'm controlling the space in the in top lane where the minions are, so I can move the enemy top laner wherever I want just by controlling the minions. So I know if I do this certain set of actions, like killing these minions or making sure the minions are at this tower, I know I'll have my top laner at his tower, at my tower, in the middle of the lane, or somewhere in between. And I feel like that's like a lot of the reason why I like top lane as a whole, because it gives me a lot of space that I can control on my own. There's not a lot of things that are going to be coming in and ruining it. I mean, there is those games where you're going to get camped by like 1 or 2 more additional people in a 3v1 top and nonsense, but it's really like your own space that you can control. And I feel like that's why I gravitated toward top lane in the first place, because before the game like really ramped up, before Rift Herald and everything, top lane truly was an island. Everyone ignored top lane. There were games where the jungler would camp it, but top lane was largely ignored, and I think that's why I gravitated toward it, just because like from my childhood just being alone, I liked to have a space that I could control, and just kind of manipulate things within it. And I think that's what my playstyle kind of leans towards, and then making sure that my opponent cannot take control of that space.
Mm-hmm. You touched on coin flipping, but something that I've managed to get out of you throughout the years is that you have a different definition of coin flipping than most other people. and you're more okay with it than people think that you would be, or that most other coin flippers would be, because there's an extra element to it where you don't necessarily see your coin flip as a coin flip like everyone else does.
Yeah, there'll be like
Um,
scenarios where so a lot of the time you don't want to be 2v1ing. Like just to bring it back to League, because I feel like it's the simplest analogy. Um, just to bring it back to League, you don't usually want a 2v1. Like you don't want to be fighting two guys. You're pretty unfavored. But there would be a lot of scenarios where I'd be able to manipulate things where I would know that I would win the 2v1. So if you didn't know all the mechanics of top lane or even League of Legends and you just looked at it, and you didn't know the characters, because like the characters I'm playing where I'm doing those kinds of things, I know them enough to where I feel confident that I can win. So if you're just looking at it blind, you'll be like, why would he ever do that? He could have lost that so badly. But the way I'm looking at it is I've played the scenario a lot, so I know that I can win it. And also like just know based off of what my opponent's character is and does, and what my character does, I know I can win it. And like coming from playing the game for so long, I know a lot of the characters very well, just because I've played with them for so long. So like, for instance, I know if you hard shove top, chances are you're gonna get ganked, just because it's very easy to gank you because you don't have a lot of escape options. But I also know if I can bring down my enemy top laner to 200 health, it's not necessarily a 2v1, because the top laner isn't going to be able to engage on me because I'll just kill him. So the jungler's going to have to go in on me, and then I have some alone time with the jungler first before the other top laner can come in. And that's where I kind of take a risk factor, because like obviously my health bar is going to drop, but it's a very high risk, but it's a very high reward. But for me, I try to lower the risk for it. So a lot of people think it's a coin flip just because it could have gone either way, but for me, I'm like kind of manipulating the variables and trying to like bring down the risk. So I'm kind of like, it looks like it's a 50-50 when really it could be like a 20-80 type of deal. It's just the way it looks.
Something else that you've also brought up is, at least when I've been talking to you about it and like poking your brain before we had the pod, is you don't necessarily see your coin flips as coin flips, because from what we've talked about before, if you win the coin flip, yeah, you win, like the game is over. If you lose the coin flip, I'm just fucking good. I win again. Like I'll just come back.
Yeah, that's the other thing. So like, I do keep in mind what happens if I don't win. And there's a lot of times where I'll take it even if it's not going to be a good outcome. Like for instance, if the game is falling apart and I know I'm gonna have to be like some type of carry, I'm going to take higher risk options that can yield a higher reward just because I know I need to be in that position. But it's like if I lose the outcome, then it's like I'm not so far, I'm not like as worst off just because the game's already in a failing state, right? Like I'm just trying to accelerate myself so we can start winning. But the big thing with it is even if you lose, you can still win, because bring it back to League, and wave manipulation and things. I will take certain engages on people just because even if I die, they're gonna have to back instantly, and the wave is so much in my favor that after the entire fight and after we both return to lane, I will have like a level and a half on them and have not double their farm but close to it, just because of how it shaped up. So just killing your opponent isn't the only way to win. So I will take coin flips that I know like even if I lose, it's not gonna be that bad. But also, I do have a lot of confidence in myself as like a player, so I know that with my champions and like abusing the mechanics, even if I lose this fight, I'll have another one that I can win. And then it becomes riskier and riskier, obviously. If you die 4 times, you're probably not gonna kill him anymore. At that point, it's probably over. But I have a lot of confidence and bravado that I can just come back and like still win the lane from there. And if I can't, then oopsie.
Oopsie indeed.
I also like the whole idea of the whole gambling and coin tossing, just because like I'm from Vegas, so obviously.
I got that national pride out there. On the other side of the coin, whereas most people view Brandon as Mr. Coin Flip, the gambler, the knife fighter, always in your face aggro. We mentioned this on the other pod, episode 1. I'm on the exact opposite side. I am Mr. Control. I am Mr. Calculate the odds, the Terminator, the prophet. I see into the future. Oh my emotion day you fucking right in your face. I love to constantly control space. I love to control like Brandon does. But whereas Brandon controls the space to get you out and to keep himself safe, I like to control space to make you not move. I want to know exactly what you're doing. I want to know what your character is going to do. I want to know what abilities you have up. I want to know. I want to live inside of your head. And that a lot of that comes from like Pokemon, which has been near and dear to my heart because that's a strategy game. A lot comes from like Magic. It comes from just like me being an academic and like a nerd. I love that knowledge gap. I like this raw satisfaction of reading what someone's gonna do exactly before they do it and punishing them right on top. I like the feeling of having someone save up all of their mana for their big fancy play and ripping it out of their fucking hands with one counter spell. And so the way that I approach games is I try to figure out what's most optimal. I try and go through the robots line of play to figure out exactly what is perfect and try and push myself to that perfect edge as much as possible. Weigh the odds in my favor so heavily that like my worst day is still better than someone else's best. And trying to constantly control and create space and like suffocate my opponents. Whereas Brandon's like way of winning the game would be you step up once, your life is gone, your nexus is dead, and he'll like snap you out of it. It'd be like a shot to the head. I prefer to strangle you from minute one, to slowly watch the game slip from your hands and slowly inch you out, inch by inch by inch, and just making you suffer. I like that element. I like rigging the odds and playing according to like machine evals or like what's recognized as optimal. And you see that a lot in my champion pools too. In Pokemon, I was actually a balance core player, which means that you balance offense and defense in your team, and you adapt to your opponent to punish. And later on, during my development as a player, I became a stall player, or a very defensive or a control player, which meant that my way of winning would be to stretch out a game and like suffocate opponents' resources, slowly milk away like their power points, their switch options, their Pokemon, and set up so when everything lined up correctly, my opponent had no hope. Like the game was over from like turn 20 or whatever. And in League, you see that with a lot of my characters because my highest mastery characters are tanks. They're characters who take charge and create fights and slowly pick people off on the right predictions. Sejuani gets one ult off, your carry is gone, you cannot play the game. Udyr gets his full rotation, he gets the dragons, you cannot play the game. He knows exactly where you're going to be, and he shows up before you do. Um, and I've been recently breaking away with that mold with characters like Warwick, who still have that punish and punish you with blood instead of like with suffocation. But fundamentally, a lot of my play style is I want to be in the driver's seat, even if you do not see me, because it do not matter what you do. If I have my plan online, you're fucked. And then Booher and I obviously meet in the middle because it it works like a dime. And I'm like, oh yeah, I will suffocate this guy. You shoot him in the head.
It's pretty good duo. Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like your playstyle is definitely a lot of like controlling people. Like
Mm,
whereas I like try to push people away and like force them out of my like zone. I feel like
mm,
you keep them in the zone, but like you're controlling all their actions.
yeah.
Is what you like to do. So
It's
like
very puppet master.
for like League, you're like playing heavy CC champions, like engage. Like you're not gonna be allowed to use that move. I know you want to, but you can't use it. Sorry, you're in lockdown right now. And Magic, like you said, you like to counter everything. Um, I mean that's all I can say. Like you just counter everything.
Fucking mono blue, Demir, Simic. You do not get to play the game.
No, we talked about it last time, but it's like it's definitely you're not allowed to have fun. You're not playing the game anymore. Well, at least I let my opponents play the game. They won't have fun,
Does
but
it
they're
last that
playing.
long?
At least they're playing.
Yeah.
Unless they leave. That's
Uh,
unfortunate.
yeah. An interesting split and a pivot that we can touch on is I touched on that a bit on my side where like academically I like controlling all the options and like the reassurance of like playing towards what is conventional and what is known, whereas you're like more like non-traditional. Um but I think a lot of our approaches to games also transfers a lot to the way that we approach like learning and like doing stuff too, like even outside of that. Because you like to go for like out of the wall strategies and like flex so your natural talent like shines through. Whereas I like to learn like what is conventional and to thrive on that structure and suffocate people who don't know the rules. But how do you take that approach and apply it to other things like your art and like your academics and how you approach figuring out stuff in general?
Oh boy.
Oh boy, yeah.
um. Okay, so with, I mean, I feel like it'd be like a good um thing to talk about on a different pod, but just to bring it up very quickly, like the whole failing mindset, like of just repeatedly failing just to constantly improve yourself. Um, I feel like I've taken that from video games. Like the TLDR is that you want to fail as much as you can as quickly as possible, because every time you fail, it's just a learning experience. That's the way I see a lot of like learning in life. Um, that you can only learn if you're failing, pretty much, and you can learn things from doing well, too. But it's like the takeaway from doing well isn't as much as failing, because if you fail, you know you'll never do that again because you don't want to feel that way again. If you're doing good, you don't really have a reason to change, so you're not learning as much from it. Like obviously, if you get a high reward, you can be like, okay, that was probably a good thing that I did. Like that was pog, you know.
Yeah.
Um, but that's like what I think I took into most of my life that I got from video games and how I play them. Just like in art in particular, constantly drawing similar things over and over again and just redoing it, repetition, not doing it well and trying to do it better and better. Like I practiced a lot of there's a website, it's called the Line of Action. It's essentially like figure drawing where someone's in a pose. It's like doing a person, like a still life of a person. But it's not. You're essentially looking at a picture of someone in a pose. They can be holding like a sword or they can be like dancing or whatever, and then you're just trying to draw them within 30 seconds, and it incrementally increases the time that you get. So it might start off with like 10 seconds, so you got to do it really quick, and like 30 seconds, and then 1 minute, and then 5 minutes, and 20 minutes. Just like keep improving yourself. And that way you also look at things this differently too, because now instead of looking at things and all their complexities and all their detail, you're trying to break it down into its roots, its shapes, like what makes it what it is essentially. Like you're trying to break it into its components rather than looking at the thing as a whole. Because when you break something down into its components, it's more digestible. It's easier to eat a hamburger when you take a bite instead of the entire hamburger. You know.
Mhm.
But the whole hamburger as a whole is very good. You wouldn't want to eat just the
Yeah.
lettuce.
Just swallow it. Unhinge your jaw like a fucking snake.
Shove it in. I can do this.
Yeah.
But that's like the way I like to look at things, because like playing piano has taught me a lot, because I feel like piano, I learned it untraditionally. I'm kind of like trying to teach myself, but it's also I'm not looking at it the way that I feel like a lot of people get into music and things. Because I'm just trying to have a lot of my piano is like having fun. And I feel like that's a major part of like anything you're trying to do. You have to have fun with it. Because if you're not having fun, then what's the point of doing it? Pretty much. And I think that anything you're having fun with, you can take some type of reward from. So like if you're having fun with it, you'll naturally get better at it because you'll do it more and you'll see things about it that you didn't before. It's like for playing piano, talking about how I'm having fun with it and talking about how I'm breaking it down into its components. Um, my ramp up for playing piano was also very quick, but it's also not traditional like how you would normally want to play piano. You normally want to learn how to read sheet music, how to play all the keys, what all the keys mean, like C, D, E, F, G, A. All of those types of things. Playing with two hands mechanically, where I kind of like broke it down into its components, like um, not necessarily chords, but trying to play different songs over and over and over again to just try to build a foundation. Where you want to build your foundation from learning the different keys and different chords. So there's like a specific like 3 or 5 keys you can play, and like it sounds good, and that's in like a lot of songs. Um, I'd rather just keep playing different songs over and over and over again, which is also where I come from playing rhythm games. I took a lot of what I took from rhythm games into my piano, which I'll get into in a second. Is that doing it over and over and over again, failing, 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 but then you notice patterns. So you notice those patterns and you get them, and then all of a sudden it's literally a click, to where you just failed to do this line 10 times in a row. Now all of a sudden you got it, and you don't fail it again. Maybe now after you do it 20 times you'll fail again, and then you have to like kind of teach yourself it. But now you like understand it. And then you see that pattern in other things. So that pattern's in other songs. You're like, oh, wait a second. There it is. So I feel like when you realize that stuff for yourself, instead of being taught it, like told it by someone else, you really understand it. Like you know it. You have that connection with it. You feel it. You trialed and errored it. And there's like pros and cons to that kind of mindset. But for me, because I was having so much fun with it, it wasn't really a big deal. Because I was like, okay, well, this is fun. Like, oh, I did it. I got it. It sounded good. Let's go. And rhythm games taught me a lot about that. Like, that's a direct transfer from gaming to another hobby of mine, playing the piano. Because rhythm games, that's exactly what I did. I would play it over and over and over again. And then I would notice a pattern. Then I'd be like, oh, okay, so I can do this and I can do that. And oh, that worked. And that's kind of how I approach life in general and anything that I'm tackling. I'll just keep trying and trying and trying, failing until I eventually succeed and I notice things about it and I can break it down. And I feel like that helps me understand something more than like if you were just taught it. Like even if you technically like have a better technical understanding of something, I feel like I can really have a full grasp on it. Like one of the struggles I've always had in life is like vocabulary, like not, I mean, I used to have like a very good vocabulary wide range, but like a specific, like in terms of vocabulary, very specific terms for things. I feel like I'm lacking a lot of just because of my learning process. Because of like skipping the steps of like properly learning something, I might not learn the term for something, and then someone will look at me like I'm an idiot because like I'm like, oh, you know the thing when you do the thing, and they're like, you're talking about this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking about that. I just didn't know what it was called. You know, so there's kind of like a disconnect there, but it's I like it. It works for me. I definitely don't think it can work for everyone, just because you get burned out very easily. Constantly failing can really wear you down, and you need to make sure you have wins with it, because there's sometimes there's periods where you don't get a win and it's like very heartbreaking. It's a struggle, which is why I think it's so important to have that fun element of it, because if you're having fun with it, failing isn't as bad, you know. And that's kind of how like my general philosophy, how I like to take everything. And I feel like we can have like an entire podcast just developed around that mindset, and like because I know you've been trying to kind of pull that idea into your life, and I think it's cool. It's something I like. But that's essentially how I apply gaming and that kind of philosophy to like everything in my life.
And to wrap it up, because we can really go on about this for like hours. Everything we talk about on the pod, we can go about for hours. But
I'm like ranting
to throw
so
my
much.
own, yeah, to throw my own hat into the ring here, because I have been trying to take a lot from your book, and there's a lot of overlap that I agree with. That I've seen like you just prove throughout your performances throughout the years, and like from talking to you. But I'm just gonna start off with what's uniquely my own. And I guess a different approach that I have in Booher is I like the traditional structure because I like that sense of progression and that stability. Whereas Brandon will try and hit the highest possible highs that he can just to see the summit, just to see this is my final form. If I could just hit this high all of the time, I will be a god. I like to have my worst days be better than someone's best. I like that structure, that stability, that control for my playstyle once again. So whenever I try and learn something, I like to break it down into small bits and like clear it like a zone. I like to break everything down into its elements piece by piece and reduce all of the variables and just practice one thing at a time, all of the boring little shit, and have that pile on. And once that's fully built, just pile drive people onto it or just flex with like that foundation. Because I'm a really firm believer in your base habits and your foundations. So like if you're just like, for example, if you're like, if you're a fighter and you're just fucking strong, you're just built like a fucking brick. It do not matter how bad your martial arts is, okay? It do not matter if you cannot do a backflip. It do not matter. If the guy is like fucking half your weight class, you're body bagging him. Nothing he can do can stop you. You just have those fundamentals because you're just fucking strong. So every time I try and learn something, I try and chase those fundamentals. I try and look at the peak and break that down piece by piece. And then after I feel like I've had my fundamentals be fleshed out, I like to look at what perfection is and try and attain that, and just build my way up step by step, brick by brick, even if it's a really slow progression. Because I'm a sore loser naturally. So instead of like being more okay with losing or forcing myself to win, I like to cut the bleeding and slowly build myself back up into a god. Whereas Booher will like try and like rip godhood with his own hands. I'm perfectly fine stacking it bit by bit and learning that structure, going by like what's traditionally known, and falling within a system in order to thrive in it rather than trying to break it and go off on my own. Which is why during the pod you'll see that Brandon knows a lot of things at a very deep level. The problem mainly comes through raw like articulation and like having the right terms, but the knowledge is all there. Whereas on the flip side, I can engage with a lot of ideas and concepts because I built down my foundations, but they're all very like shallow. Like I can vocalize things and I can ask good questions and I can like force out like answers, but I don't have that same depth because of the way that I learn it, how slowly it's built. It's the reason why my top two games are like near and dear to my soul, but my peaks are lower than Brandon, with the exception of Pokemon. But my lows aren't nearly as low. It's just because of how I've put myself like into those games. Whereas I learned to be good at those games, but I am not a good gamer. I don't have a lot of transferable skills that I can take to like windmill dunk on people. Whereas with Brandon, if you give him enough time and you throw him at something, he'll just come out. You'll see like the fucking cartoon dust cloud, and you're like, oh yeah, guys, I'm top 10%.
I feel like it's like if there is a top, you're building like a staircase up to it, and I'm like building
Yeah.
pillars, and I'm like just jumping from different pillars to get to it.
Yes.
Or you're building like a stable staircase, so like you can't fall off your staircase, where I can fall off my
Yes.
pillar, type of deal. But my
Yeah.
pillars, I can like skip certain steps and like
Yes.
maybe get there faster just because I'm zoop zap zoop.
Zip zap soup, indeed. You've seen it right here. I take like fucking 10 minutes to say something. Brandon's like, oh yeah, you're building stairs. I go pillar, zip zap zoop. I'm like, yeah, you're right. You're right, dude. It do be like that.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Brandon is very good at learning things, but he learned for himself. And if you have to just be on the same wavelength.
I need
Whereas
someone to
I'm
be
more good at teaching
for
things.
sure on the same level as me. If
Yes.
you're asking me for help and I'm going to explain something to you, you better be on the same wavelength as me, or you're gonna be lost in the sauce. Like
Yeah.
there's gonna be some
You
struggles.
get one. You get one explanation. Booher, how this work? Like this. What is that? This. What does that mean? This. Okay, never mind.
I can't say it in a different way, but I'm still saying the same thing.
Yeah. But if you hop on that wavelength, it's really easy to understand Booher because he just refines things into like such a simple point, like we mentioned on Pod 1. Whereas like I'll like step by step each concept be like, well, this word, etymology of this word actually comes back to the Latin and Greek roots, and you'll be like, bro, it do not matter. What does it mean? I was like, oh, it mean this. He's like, there you go. Why don't you just say that? But I feel like that's a big split between Booher and I, where you see like the control versus like the aggressive elements too. The big fork in the road between us is I expect more into like like teaching myself and then teaching that to other people. Because like a lot of my games are like about that social interaction, like in Pokemon and Minecraft and League. It's like that community. Whereas Booher is more about like I'm fucking good. I learn for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so
I feel like a good way to look at it, if you're looking at, I'd say this applies to most things. Me and Richard would be like the same, different sides of like the same coin, where all of our fundamentals, everything like from our beings comes from the same place. We just have branched off in different directions, like you said.
mhm.
So one of us is heads and one of us is tails.
Yeah, basically. Do I get to be the butt? I do have a dumpy.
But tails my favorite side. You got a dumpy?
Yeah, I got a dumpy. Let me show it on the pod real quick. Thick.
It's
Coach,
exposed.
my dumpy thick ass cheeks. I can't sneak by the guard.
Oh no.
But yeah, that fork in the road theme will definitely come up a lot more in the pod as we start talking about different things. But hopefully that gave you guys a little bit of an insight into how games really mean to us, I guess, and where we're coming from. Maybe later on in the pod we'll start exploring more of those forks in the road. But I think for now this is a pretty good spot to end it. No,
For sure. We've
yeah,
ranted on. I've ranted on a lot.
I read that. Yeah,
But yeah, I feel like everyone watching. Hopefully you understand us a little better, where our decisions come from, and hopefully you can understand like our kind of thought process more just from our games that we've played, how they've affected us in life in general, and all the things that have come from that. But thank you for watching. If you're on the server, hope you enjoyed it. If you're not on the server, also hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But I guess that's it for us. We'll see you
Yep.
in the next one.
Like, comment, subscribe before you leave.
Comment, but don't be mean. I'll bully you.
Yeah.
I won't
Like
bully you.
and
I'm not
subscribe,
gonna-
and if you don't like it anyways. Fuck.
There's no dislike button anymore. They took it out. Well, it's there, but
Yeah.
no one can see the numbers, so joke's on you.
Exactly. It do not matter. Just like anyways. All right.
Just like anyways.
That's it for us.
But
Bye, guys.
we'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye.